My sister humiliated me at her wedding, saying, "You're the pathetic bachelor of the family. Get out of here." Everyone laughed at me. So I walked up to the altar, grabbed the microphone, and left her single again. I always knew I wasn't the favorite in the family. I felt it from a young age, in the looks from my mother, Barbara, which always seemed softer and warmer when they landed on my younger sister, Claire. I noticed it in the words of my father, Arthur, who rarely said anything kind to me, while he'd ruffle Claire's hair and say, "That's my girl." And above all, I lived it through my sister's taunts, which, over the years, stopped being childish games and turned into something far crueler. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened on our wedding day. I'm 34 years old, and according to my mother, I was an accident, a baby who wasn't planned. Claire came 2 years later, like a gift everyone was expecting. She was a girl with big eyes and an easy smile who, from day one, stole everyone's attention. I, on the other hand, grew up clumsy, lanky, with a shyness that made me trip over my own words. While she shone, I faded. At school, she was popular. I was the weird kid who sat alone. Later, when we grew up, she landed a job at a marketing firm that paid well. She bought a new car, expensive clothes, and a condo in a fancy part town. Me? I work fixing appliances in a small shop. It's not much, but it pays the bills. Though for my mother, it was never enough. "See, George, Claire knows how to get ahead," Barbara would say, stroking my sister's hair. "You should learn from her instead of spending your days fixing toasters." And Claire, with that little laugh of hers, would add, "Yeah, George, when are you going to do something important with your life? Or are you just going to keep being the family's eternal loser?" She'd laugh, and my mother would smile like it was just another joke. My father would just grunt and keep reading the newspaper, as if I wasn't worth commenting on. Over time, Claire's taunts got harsher. When she started making money, she made sure to rub it in my face every chance she got. If I showed up to a family gathering in an old shirt, she'd say, "Is that the best you can afford? I could buy you a decent one, but I don't want to waste my paycheck." If I mentioned having a long day at work, she'd reply, "Sure, fixing microwaves must be exhausting. I closed a 6-figure deal today, but I guess not everyone can be a winner." She'd say it with a smile, like it was a joke, but her eyes told a different story. She looked down on me. I took in silence, not because I wanted to, but because I never knew how to stand up for myself. I've always been that way, reserved, someone who avoids trouble rather than confronts it. But every comment, every superior glance, stuck with me like a stone piling up in an invisible sack I carried on my back. Until Claire's wedding day arrived. She'd been planning her big day for months. She was marrying Daniel, a young, successful lawyer who seemed perfect for her. Handsome, polite, with a smile that fit the life my sister always wanted. The wedding was to be in an elegant church, with a reception in a venue full of crystal chandeliers and uniformed waiters. All paid for by her, of course, because she loved reminding us she could afford it. When I got the invitation, I barely glanced at it. It was a white envelope with gold lettering, and inside was a card with the date, time, and place. I left it on the table in my small apartment and didn't touch it again until the day of the event. I didn't notice the fine print at the bottom that read, "Please attend with your partner. Single guests will not be permitted." If I'd read it, maybe I wouldn't have gone. But with my usual absent-mindedness, I put on a decent shirt, pants that weren't too wrinkled, and drove to the church. I arrived just in time. The church was packed with well-dressed people, Claire's family and friends chatting excitedly as they waited for the ceremony to start. I sat in a pew at the back, feeling out of place among all the expensive suits and glittering dresses. I saw my mother and father in the front row, her with an enormous, ridiculous hat, him with a tie that looked like it was choking him. Claire hadn't appeared yet, but Daniel was already at the altar, smiling nervously as the priest prepared everything. The music started, and everyone turned to watch her enter. She was radiant, in a white dress that probably cost thousands and a veil that floated behind her like a cloud. She walked down the aisle with her head held high, nodding to some guests with that perfect smile of hers. I have to admit, she looked beautiful. But that didn't erase years of humiliation. The ceremony began smoothly. The priest spoke about love commitment, and all the things that sound nice at weddings. Daniel and Claire looked at each other with shining eyes, and for a moment, I thought everything would go perfectly for her. But then, just before the vows, Claire raised a hand and said, "Excuse me, Father, I need a moment." The priest blinked, surprised, but nodded. She turned to the guests with that smile I knew too well, the one she wore before saying something cruel. "Dear friends and family," she began, "thank you for being here on my special day. But before we continue, I want to do something fun. Can everyone stand up with their partners and give a big round of applause? Come on, celebrate love with me." There were laughs and murmurs, and one by one, the guests stood. Men and women, young and old, holding hands or arms, clapping and cheering like it was a game. Everyone except me. I stayed seated alone in my pew at the back. I hadn't brought a partner because I don't have one, and I didn't even know it was required. I looked around, hoping no one would notice, but then Claire's eyes locked onto me. Her smile grew wider, and I knew I was in trouble. "Oh, look," she said, pointing at me with one finger. "It seems there's someone who doesn't have anyone to clap with." "George, seriously, you came alone? You couldn't find anyone who wanted to be with you?" The church erupted in laughter. Some covered their mouths, others stared right at me, and my mother, from the front row, smiled as if she was proud of her. Claire continued, "You're the pathetic bachelor of the family, George. Why don't you just leave? This is a day for winners, not for you." The booing started. At first, it was just a few, but soon almost everyone joined in, pointing at me and laughing. I felt heat rising to my face, the sack of stones on my back becoming unbearable. I could have stood up and run out like I always did when things got tough, but something inside me snapped. It wasn't just the humiliation of that moment, but all the years of mockery, disdain, and being the background character in my own family. And then I decided to do something. I stood up, ignoring the laughter, and walked straight to the altar. Claire was still laughing, microphone in hand, but when she saw me coming, she frowned. "What are you doing?" she asked, but I didn't answer. I snatched the microphone from her hands and turned to the guests, who suddenly went quiet, waiting to see what would happen. "You know what?" I said, my voice shaking a bit at first, but gaining strength. "Claire's right about one thing. I'm the bachelor of the family. But if there's one thing she's an expert at, it's humiliating others to feel better about herself. She's done it to me since we were kids. Because I don't have her money, her car, her perfect life. She's always rubbed it in my face, and you've all seen it." I paused, looking at my mother, who was now frowning, and my father, who finally seemed interested in something I was saying. Daniel, next to Claire, looked confused. I took a deep breath and continued. "But today isn't about me. It's about her. Because Claire isn't as perfect as she wants you to think. And I have proof." I pulled my phone from my pocket and found a video I'd saved months ago from a Christmas party at our uncle's house. I hit play and pointed the phone toward Daniel, wanting him to see it first while I described what was happening into the microphone. In the video, Claire was drunk, stumbling in the backyard, kissing our cousin Liam. It wasn't a friendly kiss. That much was clear. Everyone gasped at once. Daniel stepped back, staring at her with wide eyes. "What is this?" he shouted. She waved her hands, desperate. "It's fake. He made it up. It's not true." But no one believed her. The footage was clear, and Liam, who was among the guests, turned red and looked down. I wasn't done. "And there's more," I said, stepping closer to her, who now glared at me with pure hatred. "You've always hidden things, haven't you? Like this." I reached for her head, grabbed her veil along with the hairpiece holding it, and pulled hard. The veil flew off, and with it, a perfectly styled brunette wig. Underneath, her head was bald and gleaming under the church lights. The silence lasted a second before laughter exploded. Some doubled over. Others pulled out their phones to record. Daniel let out a sob. "What is this? You cheated on me with your cousin and lied about this?" he said, pointing at her head. "You're a liar." As Claire started to cry, Daniel stormed off the altar and ran down the aisle, leaving her alone, trembling with shame. I leaned into the microphone one last time. "Who's the single one now, Claire?" I said, letting out a laugh. My mother stood up, furious, yelling, "George, I'm going to kill you," and tried to swing at me. but I dodged easily. I walked off the altar, passing through the guests who wouldn't stop laughing and recording, and left the church without looking back. When I got to my apartment, I collapsed on the couch, my heart still racing. I didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in my life, I felt like I'd won. The next morning, I woke to someone pounding on my door. I got up from the couch. I hadn't even made it to my bed and looked out the window. It was my mother, Barbara, with that furious face only she can pull off. She was still wearing that ridiculous wedding hat, though it was a bit crooked now, like she'd rushed out without fixing it. My father, Arthur, was behind her, hands in his pockets with that, "I don't want to be here," look he always has when my mother's mad. "George, open this door right now," Barbara shouted, banging with her fist. "You're not hiding after what you did." For a second, I thought about pretending I wasn't there. I could stay quiet, wait for them to give up, and leave. But I knew that wouldn't work with my mother. She's the type to stand there all day, yelling until the neighbors called the cops. So I took a deep breath, ran a hand through my messy hair, and opened the door. "What do you want, Mom?" I said, trying to sound calm, though my heart was pounding again. "What do I want? What do I want?" she screeched, storming in like a tornado and shoving me aside. "How dare you ask that after ruining your sister's wedding? You humiliated her in front of everyone. You ruined her life." My father trailed and slowly behind her, lingering by the door, staring at the floor like he wished it would swallow him. He always does that. Lets my mother speak for both of them, though I'm sure he was angry too. "I didn't ruin anything," I said, crossing my arms. "She humiliated me first. Or did you not see how she called me a pathetic bachelor in front of everyone? How she laughed at me while you smiled? All I did was give her a taste of her own medicine. That doesn't give you the right to do what you did," Barbara yelled, pointing at me with a trembling finger. "That video, that wig. What were you thinking, George? You left her looking ridiculous. Daniel left her at the altar because of you, and now she's devastated. Do you know how much that wedding cost her? What it meant to her? And what about what it meant to me?" I shot back, raising my voice without meaning to. "My whole life, Claire's treated me like garbage. She's always been the favorite, the perfect one, the one who does everything right. And you and Dad always cheered her on, while you looked at me like I was a mistake. Did you ever care how I felt?" My mother went quiet for a second, her mouth open like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. My father looked up from the floor, and for a moment I thought he might speak, but he didn't. Barbara recovered quickly and went on. "That's not true, George. We've always loved you, but you never do anything to stand out. Claire worked hard to get where she is, and you just complain." "Complain?" I said, feeling the anger rising again. "Do you know how many times she's called me a loser because I don't have her money? How many times she's made me feel small just because I don't live like her? And yesterday, at her wedding, she humiliated me in front of everyone because I don't have a partner. And you think I'm the bad guy for defending myself? That doesn't justify what you did," Barbara said, quieter now, but her eyes still blazing with anger. "You showed that awful video and pulled off her wig. You left her bald in front of the whole church. Do you know what that means for a woman? It was cruel. Cruel," I repeated, almost laughing. "She's been cruel to me my whole life, Mom. And you never said anything. You always defended her. Yesterday, when she was getting everyone to boo me, you were smiling. That wasn't cruel." She went silent, then pointed at me as she opened the door and left with Dad. Barbara knew what I was saying was true and had no more words, so she just walked out without saying anything else. The next day, I decided to get out. I couldn't stay cooped up forever, and I needed to clear my head. I went to a diner near my place to have lunch and relax a bit. But as soon as I sat down, I noticed people looking at me strangely. A couple at the next table was whispering and pointing subtly. The girl behind the counter smiled at me in a way that wasn't normal, like she knew something. And then I saw it, a guy holding a phone, playing a video of the wedding. My voice came through loud and clear. "Who's the single one now, Claire?" The video was everywhere. It had been posted on social media, and people couldn't stop sharing it. Some called it the revenge of the century. Others said it was the funniest thing they'd seen in years. But there were harsh comments too. "What a cruel guy. Poor bride, she didn't deserve that." I felt weird, like I was famous and hated at the same time. Later that night, my sister sent me a WhatsApp message that read, "I hate you. I'll never forgive you for what you did. You took everything from me. My wedding, my dignity, my happiness. Daniel won't talk to me, my friends are avoiding me, and every time I go out, someone points and laughs. But if you think this is over, you're wrong. I'm going to bounce back, and when I do, you'll wish you never did this to me. This isn't the end." Claire's message, with that threat at the end, left me uneasy. I couldn't stop thinking about what she might do, how she planned to bounce back and make me pay. But I wasn't prepared for what I found 2 days later. I'd spent the day working, fixing a couple of washing machines, and trying to keep my mind busy. My boss had given me a weird look when I showed up, and one of the guys I work with slapped me on the back and said, "You're a legend, George." I didn't know whether to laugh or hide. I just wanted things to go back to normal, though I knew that wasn't possible anymore. When I finished my shift, I drove back to my apartment, exhausted and ready to crash on the couch with a beer. But as I turned the corner onto my street, I saw something was wrong. The windows of my place were smashed. All of them. Glass shards glinted on the sidewalk, and the front door frame was scratched, like someone had tried to pry it open. My heart raced as I parked the car and approached. Then I saw it. The outer walls, the ones facing the street, were spray-painted red. One huge word, scrawled in angry, crooked letters, "Loser." Next to it, it said, "Pathetic Bachelor," mocking me that I stood there, staring at the mess, hands in my pockets because I didn't know what else to do. There was no doubt who was behind it. Claire, or maybe someone she sent. This was her revenge, her way of telling me she wasn't letting it go. I stepped inside the apartment carefully, crunching over the glass that had fallen in. Everything was trashed. Couch cushions thrown around, the TV scratched, even the fridge open with food spilled on the floor. It was a clear message. She wanted me to know she could get to me, that she could hurt me. I started thinking seriously. Yes, I'd got my revenge at the wedding. I gave Claire a taste of her own medicine, and for a moment, it felt good, powerful. But this was something else. She wasn't going to stop. If she'd gone as far as trashing my place, what was next? Would she come after me on the street? Send someone to really hurt me? I didn't want to live looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next blow. I'd want a battle, but I didn't want a war. So I started planning. I was going to move, start over somewhere else, far from Claire, from my mother, from all the weight I'd been carrying for years. The next day, I called my boss and told him I was quitting. I didn't give much explanation, just that I needed change. He grumbled something about how hard it'd be to replace me, but didn't try to convince me to stay. Then I went to the bank, withdrew the little money I'd saved, not much, but enough for a couple of months, and started looking for a place to go to. I decided to move to a city about 5 hours away. When I got there, I rented a cheap room and found a job at an auto shop, where the vibe was laid back and the pay better than before. Weeks later, I met Sarah. Her simple, kind way caught my attention, and we started talking more often. Over time, our hangouts became regular. Walks by the river, movies, pizza in the park. Months have passed. Now I work Monday through Friday, spend weekends with her, and left behind my family and the memories of the wedding. Watching Sarah laugh, I think this life, simple but mine, is enough. And so, little by little, I stopped being the George who carried a sack of stones. Now I'm just me with a decent job, a girl who makes me smile, and a city that doesn't judge me. I don't know if this is what they call happiness, but it feels pretty close.
Subscribe for more daily stories.